What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Designated Players Podcast. It is episode 178. Goodness me. We're back with some stories today, good, bad, and ugly, from MLS's history. To start, the story of a relocated side from San Jose who went from 2 MLS Cups and a supporter shield to being shipped out of state in a matter of a few years. Then, a quick chat about that new team's first ever game and the birth of a legend in the orange kits of Houston. My name's Andrew, joined by my good buddy Connor, and this is MLS History Retold. Connor, how are you doing, friend?
I'm doing well. I'm excited we're getting to the point in MLS history where I actually have scarves for teams.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say you were not doing so well because you've been trying to avoid me for so long that you now have to see me again. That's just
That
no
is true.
good.
That is true. It is a Debbie Downer having to
Make
see you
a
again.
make a whole trip back to Long Island and doesn't even come say hi. Ridiculous.
Listen, I
Um,
was there first. I was there before you. You didn't come say hi to me.
Yeah, my trip's a bit tougher than yours, buddy. Sorry.
Well, according to
Um,
you, I'm in other countries all the time, so
well, you
clearly my
are.
trip is covered.
The proof is in the pudding. I'm just saying. Anyways, this is going to be a good one. I'm excited. This is a really big part of MLS history. Um, the relocation of San Jose to Houston, as I've learned a lot more than what I originally knew about it. And I think it's a really good story to tell, as well as the early days of Houston before Houston even was Houston. It was a different Houston, and we're going to talk about that too. So I'm super excited. And then, of course, the a big game for you coming up at the end there will be another good story as well. Did you enjoy your research?
Yeah, I was actually able to find like a video of the entire game, so I was able to watch clips of said goals in said game.
That's the other thing I'm also excited for as we get closer. This is now closing in on 2005, 2006. The internet actually like exists here. So
Yeah,
there are lots of clips and people are actually archiving things. It's a little bit easier to find, but
true.
um we always got to dive right into it. You know it. Scarf of the week. What are you rocking? I'm hoping something good.
Well, I mean, come on. Both of us are talking about the exact same team. So, yes, I have the Houston scarf,
Are
of
we?
course. Huh?
I might be talking about a different team.
Well, I saw your scarf already, so I know you're
Well,
not.
yeah, but people who are listening haven't seen it.
All right, well,
I feel bad for those people. We bring out a scarf
you
every week and they
you
haven't seen a
could have
single
done a
one.
different scarf. There's another team that's involved that you could have.
Yeah, but I've broken that out so many times in MLS history over the past few weeks. Yep, Houston. I like this one. Old school Dynamo logo. Not super like expensive or anything like that, but it's a nice look for a cheap scarf. So big fan of it. Shall I shall I kick us off?
Take it away.
All right. I've got two stories in a row here, kind of. They all tie into each other. It's all one kind of big long series here. But we're going to start in 2005, where the San Jose Earthquakes were among the most successful franchises in MLS to that point. They were only one of three teams to win multiple MLS Cups, along with DC and LA, and one of only four teams to win it at that time, other than those teams. So it was SKC was in there, as well as Chicago were also involved. Despite the team's success, attendance had always been an issue. In the shadow of the LA Galaxy, San Jose never really drew the crowds it expected. They took homage in Spartan Stadium on San Jose State University's campus, which could hold up to 30K supporters. However, San Jose rarely got to even half of that capacity, usually finishing in the bottom half of the league's attendance rankings nearly every year since it started, as well as bottoming out 2 or 3 years in the first 10, being the lowest of the low. Combine that with the fact that San Jose State was taking a massive cut of the profits from the tickets and merchandise sales from the MLS team, it was becoming very, very difficult for this side to financially survive in the state that it was in. How did we get to this point in 2005? Well, for that, we probably should jump back to the start of the league. Before MLS kicked off, there was a semi pro league with team rights, including the San Jose Hawks in the APSL, as well as the original San Jose Earthquakes from the NASL days. The owner of the San Jose Hawks at that time, Daniel Van Voorhees, who was in charge, wanted to get his team into MLS. And what he did for a spot in MLS was exchange the player contracts, front office resources, and stadium rights to Spartan Stadium to MLS to get a spot in the league. So he didn't really pay an expansion fee as much as he said, here, we've already got this whole layout. Let's do it. He was the primary owner of the side until some personal problems persisted, and he had to accept a buyout from the league, making San Jose yet another league-owned team by the time 1996 came around and it kicked off. The team would play on for 3 years as a league-owned side with poor results, including one first-round playoff exit in 1996 and then missing the playoffs completely in 97 and 98. In 1999, Robert Kraft, owner of the New England Revolution, took ownership of the team, implementing changes all throughout the management team and bringing back the original San Jose Earthquake names from the San Jose Clash, which we knew in early days MLS. Even with these changes, they did miss out on the playoffs again, though it was a little bit closer in 1999. In 2000, they missed the playoffs for a fourth straight year, which led to the worst attendance in league history to that point in 2001, where they did not even average over 10,000 fans in a year that they won MLS Cup and had generational talent in their team, including Landon Donovan, Dwayne De Rosario, Ronald Cerritos, Jimmy Conrad, and Troy Dyack. This was a massive red flag to Robert Kraft, who found a quick out by selling the side to a group consisting of Silicon Valley Sports and Entertainment, who were the owners of the San Jose Sharks in the NHL, and Anschutz Entertainment Group, AEG, who at this point in 2001 already owned half of the teams in the league. After 1 year of joint ownership, AEG exercised its option to be a sole investor in the team and now took full ownership of 60% of the MLS clubs by January 1st, 2003. While this cast reasonable doubt into the future of the league at the time, as a reporter Gus Martins wrote, the acquisition of the San Jose franchise should redouble doubt about the league's course, as it underscores the scarcity of new investors or new capital coming into the league since 1996. And while this may be true, the issue was not that AEG owned it, but why they took over in the first place. Even after their second MLS Cup win in 2003, San Jose couldn't get more than 11,000 fans through the door. San Jose was known from the start, according to fans, as the redheaded stepchild of MLS. The market wasn't New York or LA or Miami. The team wasn't that good. The ownership kind of sucked. So when AEG took over, it was pretty clear that it was for one reason and one reason only: to get the team out of San Jose and move it to a more favorable market to keep them alive. There wasn't really an attempt to make the team more marketable or draw more fans. It was really just come in and have an escape plan. This rumor wasn't really denied by AEG, so the GM at the time, Johnny Moore, who came up with the club from its NASL days, resigned. Who comes in to be the next GM of the San Jose Earthquakes? None other than AEG's handpicked buddy, everybody's favorite pundit, Alexi Lalas, who, as we know, was a part of LA Galaxy's roster in the early MLS days and had very strangely close ties with LA. What followed from that appointment was a slew of sketchy transfers to Los Angeles, including the trade of the rights to their best player, Landon Donovan, which, of course, will go down in history as one of the best moves in MLS history, as well as Steve Cronin and Todd Donovan making the move to LA before they eventually announced that they were going to move the team from San Jose. Yeah, a little bit sketchy, but we move on. We know the team ended up in Houston, but that was not actually the first plan that they had. Before AEG moved the team to Houston, they held talks with many groups to assume ownership of the club and keep them in San Jose. First and foremost was partial owners in 2001, Silicon Valley. They wanted to buy the club outright and build a soccer-specific stadium in San Jose with partially public funding. This was the main plan, to keep San Jose in California and leave MLS with a second Californian team. However, The city shut down the plans, citing no financial logic behind the deal for either side. This left AEG's hands tied, and Don Garber said they could look to move the team, gave him the permission to say, okay, you can look to move it. Who steps up? Not Houston. Club America from Liga MX steps in and says, we'd like to buy the team. AEG begins conversations to sell ownership to the Club American ownership group, much like the Chivas USA ownership would have been in 2005. The rumor was that the team was about to be sold to Club America. They would be relocated to Houston or San Antonio and rebranded as the San Jose America, which would have taken the cake for the single worst name in pro sports ever. Luckily, this fell through as well, and they'd never actually made that move. But could you imagine America owning another team in MLS? So AEG decides then to move the club on its own to Houston and announced Oliver Luck, a former Houston Oilers quarterback, as the team president and general manager. Don Garber and company were happy, stating, MLS always believed that this city had great potential to be a soccer market. We're excited about the opportunities we have here, but they also noted that it was their intention to return back to San Jose as early as possible, which was not a lie. They had the proof to do it. They let San Jose keep the licensing, logos, trademarks, Earthquake's name, all of it. They didn't move any of it because they wanted to come back, and they did just 2 years later. Flash forward 18 years, we look back at the time that San Jose was packed up and moved completely out of state. For lack of fan support, profits, soccer-specific stadium, the Earthquake were put on hiatus for 2 years and returned with similar support from the first try, averaging lower in the league than most and bottoming out in fan attendance early in their second try. The main reason everybody listed for relocation was that they couldn't get a soccer-specific stadium. However, when Houston relocated, they played in Robertson Stadium at the University of Houston until 2012. 7 total seasons. San Jose only played 10, I believe 9 or 10 seasons. So you're looking at 3-year difference before they moved out. Was the stadium really the issue? Did the league not encourage the Earthquakes to look at another temporary site until the funds could be acquired for the soccer-specific stadium? It's not like California didn't have a plethora of places to play. Was this just another AEG cash grab to assume total control of league profits? That's really up for the readers to decide. Or was MLS just doing whatever it could to get a team to Houston? They had been very, very adamant at the time that they wanted to get a team to Houston. And this was one way that they could do it. The readers and listeners can decide which is the true path that this took. But today we have 2 franchises that compete in the Western Conference that have had their own levels of success and excitement. But one can sit down and wonder what would have happened if MLS had kept San Jose in California instead of uprooting them and making them restart from scratch. Directly after moving to Houston, they took most of the San Jose team, which had won 2 MLS Cups in the last 5 years, and plopped them in Texas. Put new orange kits on them and said, go have fun and go play. All the management staff, all the players, all the support staff, all of it. Just a new name and a new location. What happens? Houston wins back-to-back MLS Cups in their first year. Had that been San Jose, they would have had 4 MLS Cup titles in a span of about 6 years and would easily be recognized as one of the greatest MLS franchises ever. Maybe even the best dynasty of all time. However, since returning from just a 2-year break, they had to restart from scratch. They had to pick it up, go through an expansion draft, sign players from the bottom, and work their way up. Since returning from that 2-year break in 2008, they have 1 Supporters Shield, 2 Wooden Spoons, 4 last place finishes in the West, and just 4 playoff appearances. What would have happened to the San Jose Earthquakes had they simply found a new, less expensive home to play in? The world may never know. However, that was the end of San Jose, but it was also the beginning of Houston. And I don't add a name to that because there was a little bit of a hiccup in the naming convention. Houston was given the rights to this San Jose team in 2006, as we had just mentioned. So it did not have a lot of time to figure out some of the key parts of its team. Who would be in charge of making big picture decisions? Who would coach the team? Where would they play? And what were they going to be called? In 2006, Houston had just 1 month to figure this out. And what better way to do it than let the fans pick their name? In January of that year, the team put out a poll that got over 11,000 votes, almost 2,200 of which were cast in favor of the team name Houston 1836. It beat out the likes of the Houston Lone Stars, Houston Apollos, and Houston Mustangs. The team name was selected to symbolize the founding of a city of Houston, which won its independence from Mexico in the Texas Revolution earlier in history. Put decade, but it wasn't that decade. The team name was announced, logos created, a black star with white and orange 1836 across the middle. The team was ready to play. And while the owners were full of excitement and happiness that their new toy was finally about to be taken out of the box for the very first time, the rest of the community did not reflect that sentiment. One of the main reasons the team was uprooted from San Jose in the first place was to tap into the massive football and culture Houston had to offer, mainly with Mexican-American background. Upon revealing the logo and roots from which it came, the majority of the population was offended and angry. They cited feelings of ill will toward those of Mexican descent, including Texas's independence from Mexico, the Battle of the Alamo, and the defeat of General Santa Anna by Sam Houston in the Texas Revolution. After the outrage, team president Oliver Luck is quoted as saying, "We believed, as many people do, that 1836 was a great name, symbolizing the founding of a city that we are in." Obviously, we hit a bit of a raw nerve with the Mexican-American community. Dan Quartermanche, league spokesperson, speaking on behalf of MLS and Don Garber, also added his comments, saying, "At no time did the team or MLS ever want to offend any members of the Houston community. We certainly apologize to those who feel wronged, insulted. We were listening to their concerns, and we're carefully analyzing the situation. We want everybody to be a part of MLS in Houston." So for a few days, the team reverted to being nameless again, awaiting an announcement for a more inclusive team name for the city of Houston. They eventually settled on a spin-off of a former USL side that was known as the Houston Dynamos. However, they made it very clear in a press conference when announcing the new name that the name Houston Dynamo was not about the old team, but a reference to Dynamo being an energy source and a tribute to the city's ongoing spirit and ties to energy, much more inclusive, much more person-friendly. A little bit weird, but okay. Even back in those days, there was an internet, and if there's an internet, there are people who are going to complain about something. Reaction to the new team name ranged from lame and horrible and unoriginal. Some chimed in with the notion of this being a PC debacle, and others thought the name to be catchy and unique. Some others took their name out on just the concept of changing the name in the first place, citing it as an insult to the history of Texas. But at the end of the day, most people just wanted to move on and focus on football. Not every team has survived in MLS. Some fold, some go on hiatus, some change their name. But only once has a team name been so short-lived that it didn't even make it to opening day. And that is the claim to fame of Houston 1836, the shortest-lived team name in MLS history.
I'm honestly not sure where to start there.
You don't have to.
A lot of information.
Yeah, so
maybe this is some like a topic where if we ever started another series on what ifs, this would be a good one.
Oh, there are a bunch of
Jose
people.
State?
A bunch of people did that already. I believe it might have been Wormburner and Eli Lesser might have gone in and done this like in a Football Manager hypothetical save.
Or like this in this scenario, you're saying, like this
Yeah.
specific one,
like
that's
they
good.
started an expansion team with all of the old players, and I don't know. That's what I think it might be. However, people have already talked about that, and there was no real hypothetical, but it could be something we could dive into because the stats are there, right? I mean, they literally picked the team up, took all of them, essentially all of them, plopped them into another state, and they won back-to-back MLS titles. So it wouldn't be a far stretch to think if you had left them in San Jose, even with the lack of fan support, they would have been successful. And we know that success drives engagement. Would they have survived? Would they have been the best team? Would they be the San Jose that is just crawling themselves out of the gutter now? I have no idea. For Houston, on the other hand, they wanted to move on. They wanted to focus on football. They had a weird name, but they went on and they won 2 MLS Cups. They went on and went to back-to-back MLS Cups just 5 years later. I mean, they were a team to be reckoned with. What could say, and really just reverse the roles, right? Because MLS wanted Houston there. They wanted Houston as a part of what they were going to do. So there would have been a team in Houston at some point. So just flip the roles. Keep San Jose with that success and have Houston start from, zero like every other expansion team does. It would have been a really, really interesting way to do it. It probably would have had a heavy Mexican influence, like one would expect from a team like that, being so close to the Mexican border and having that history. But yeah, definitely something to dive into.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, like I said, the interesting part was how you move on from basically saying, "Oh, we're moving a team here," to tap into this potential of Mexican American heritage, pissing them all off, and then trying to just focus on the football. And I think their first game kind of put it to bed, didn't it?
That was your transition that you were hyping up.
Ah, come on, that was
Not
awesome.
bad. It's not bad. It was all right. It was all right. Yeah, let's talk about their first game then. So, as always, source for this one, I was able to find a video on YouTube which showed basically the entire game. The last couple of minutes got cut off, but that's all right. Also used a little bit of Wikipedia and Transfer Market as I usually do. All right, so let's dive into the story itself then. So at this point in MLS's history, there have been 4 new expansion sides since the league began in 1996. That being Chicago, Miami, RSL, and Chivas. The combined record for these teams' first game is 1-1-2, with Chicago beating Miami in 1998. The 2 expansion sides faced off in their first game. And in 2005, RSL drawing the Metro and Chivas losing to DC United. And also, on a side note, in 1998, when Chicago and Miami played each other, somebody had to win. It was still the era of shootouts in every single game if it was tied. So there was going to be a winner for an expansion side, no matter what. However, that was still the only first game win for an expansion side to this date in MLS history. So the track record was not great for expansion sides, especially with how poor the 2 expansion sides were from the previous season in 2005. However, Houston was different, as they were not really a true expansion size. They were merely just a relocated side from San Jose, as Andrew had spoken about. And mind you, San Jose was a side that just won the Supporter Shield last season. So pretty good starting ground to work with. Also add to that the team basically held on to all of its key players from the season prior through the relocation. And it makes it feel even less like a new side to the league. However, this was technically the first ever game for the Houston Dynamo, and they were set to take on the Colorado Rapids. The Dynamo would march out a strong lineup with the likes of Onstad, Ching, and De Rosario, just a few of the big names in the team. The Rapids would likewise send out a team with plenty of familiar faces as well, such as legendary keeper Joe Cannon, defender Mike Petke, and a 23-year-old Kyle Beckerman. The Rapids were a formidable team, bolstering the second best defense in the Western Conference the season prior, only behind the Quakes themselves. So this was no walk in the park for Houston's first game. However, when we get into the game itself, maybe it was the adrenaline to be able to get the first ever Houston goal, but Houston had most of the early chances in the game, picking up right where they left off the season prior. The breakthrough finally came in the 13th minute after Wade Barrett spins and hits a fadeaway pass, which just finds the foot of Ching, who pokes it past Cannon to score the first ever Houston Dynamo goal. Now, don't get too complacent because just 2 minutes later, the youngster, and I can't believe I'm using that term, Beckerman, has a hit from way downtown, which rifles past Onstad to level the score. You could say at least it's already an exciting debut game. Then we do hit a lull in the game in terms of goals for a little while. But don't worry, there are still plenty of goals to come. And one of those plenty was in the 37th minute. After De Rosario collects a loose ball and lays it off to Brian Mullen on the right flank, he proceeds to place in a perfect cross to find an unmarked Brian Ching to put Houston back in front. And don't worry, we've still got more in this half. In the 44th minute, right before the half, who else but Brian Ching would score again after Mullen whipped in another great cross to find an unmarked Ching to head home, giving him a first half hat trick in Houston's first ever game. All right, now we're at halftime. And if the second half is anything like the first, we're in for a treat. While all the attention was on Brian Ching and his first half hat trick, Colorado were not out of this game. And early in the second half, they would make that abundantly clear. Jovan Karofsky in the 52nd minute would take a free kick just outside the box and bang it past Odstad to make it 3-2. However, if there was one man to make sure that Brian Ching's special night was not spoiled, it would be Brian Ching himself. In the 72nd minute, De Rosario would whip in a corner to find who else but Brian Ching to not only score his fourth goal of the game, but also get a hat trick of headers at this point. For the love of everything, somebody mark this man, please. This goal would solidify the first ever win for the Dynamo, but they did tack on one more goal, as in the 92nd minute, Alejandro Moreno would find a loose ball floating in the air in the box and would bicycle kick the ball home to make it 5 goals and also give Houston the goal of the week. You cannot get a more exciting first ever game than this. 7 total goals, 4 from one player, and a bicycle kick to round it off. It was an unbelievable debut for the Dynamo, which may have been the start of a special season for the squad, but I won't go into the details of that because that will be for another episode of MLS History Retold.
I love when people tell me that there's no fun storylines or they can't get excited about MLS. Like stuff like this is what we're talking about. You can't
4 games on a debut game is insane.
you can't look at things like this and be like, oh well, it's what does it mean anyway? You find meaning in things you want to find meaning in, right? I can look at anything and be like, oh, it doesn't matter. I can go and say the UEFA Champions League doesn't matter because Europe and it's not my country, right? Of course, I enjoy it, but if you want to find enjoyment, you'll find enjoyment. This is what we're talking about here. Absolutely unreal scenes. Legendary stuff out of Brian Ching in Houston to the point, I believe he had a testimonial game at the end of his career, didn't he? This is where it all starts, right? Yeah, I love
one
this.
game to become a Houston legend.
Yeah. People remember, like I said, it was the first thing in the Reddit when I was like, oh, Houston fans, what do you got? They're like, first game ever. That,
of course.
So,
the fans that have been around since the first day. I mean, I still remember Atlanta's first goal ever. So I'm sure it's meaningful especially when you score 4. Like that's something you're never gonna forget.
And that's what it's all about is those connections, not just for the casual fan. It's for the people who have been there. But that has been another episode of MLS History Retold. We are closing in on story number 50. How crazy is that?
Yeah, it's pretty wild. It's been flying, that's for sure.
But don't worry, we are nowhere near the end. We've got over 400 stories, and they're just growing, by the way. Each year with this Leagues Cup stuff, Leagues Cup probably has its own history segment that we need to do.
Oh man, Leagues Cup has been popping off.
It has been just pure insanity, pure chaos. Absolutely love it. We're gonna have a Leagues Cup recap at the end of it, talking about what we've learned, ways it can change, things like that. Just absolute scene. So we hope you enjoyed it. Thanks so much for listening. If you did, make sure you leave us a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And we'll be back again Friday with a fun game Friday. And then Wednesday, we'll probably be back to some top 10s, some more history, some more recap stuff. I mean, there's tons of stuff on the way. So we hope you enjoyed it. Thanks so much. Make sure you're following us wherever you get your podcasts. You know, when we next post those episodes. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. We're all over there. We're posting all of our clips from basically every episode we put out there, and we want to interact with you. So please make sure you're following there and interacting with us. And from there, we hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time on the next episode of the Designated Players Podcast. See ya.